buddy.
I love it. All right, keep going.
Transmission successful.
Hit it!
What?
Well, welcome to the RMNU podcast. I'm your host, Ed Lamagner, and joining us on today's show, got Professor Jeff Mitchell from Elite Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Newark, Delaware. How's it going?
Things are going good. How's it going with you?
I'm doing well. And, one of the things that we try to do with the podcast is to get individuals to share their story. So if you could, take a few moments, let people know how you got started in martial arts and what led you to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Well, when I was a kid, I always grew up, and my family came from boxing. My grandfather was a professional boxer. He made it to the #1 ranking in the world, and he fought, a bunch. But then he got drafted into the military for the war, and he fought on the ships with inside the military, and he had to retire because he was working a crank on a ship, and when he set the lock for the crank broke and it spun and hit his face, and it crushed the bones in the side of his face. So he never actually got to fight for the title. He was supposed to. And he's in the Wyoming Valley Hall of Fame, and his father is actually in the Wyoming Valley Hall of Fame for boxing also. He was a trainer. So, I did boxing for a long time. It was a lot of fun. It was, it's one of those things that you really got to want to get beat up every day to want to stay in it. I tried Tung Sudo. I did not like that at all. I did Ed Parker System Kempo. I had fun with that, but they actually told me, the instructors there, they knew I wanted to try grappling. So they actually told me about a place that had opened up. So I went over there and tried it out. And ever since that day, I've been doing it now over 33 years now. I hit.
Dang.
Yeah, I started when I was 18.
In jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, I mean, first few months, we did a grappling art called Taijitsu.
Okay.
And then we got under Mario Yamasaki, who is, he was a referee with the UFC and stuff like that. We were under him, and we switched over to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and that's what I've been doing ever since.
And how did you cross paths with Robson?
I knew you were going to ask that. You'd like to ask that because I get beat up in this story. So we were at a tournament, a local tournament, and I was just there to help the team out. We had a couple of guys competing, and then there was Robson was there. I had no clue who he was. And the story was he entered the lightweight division, and everybody backed out of that division. Nobody wanted to fight him. So Robson actually, they came to me and asked me if I wanted to do a match, just like an exhibition match. And I was like, against who? And they pointed to Robson. I was like, he's the size of a small little girl. Of course I'll do it. And I was trying to find stuff to get ready for it. I had to borrow some shorts and stuff like that because it was a no-gi match. And as I was walking by the table, I saw this lady that I knew. And she stopped me and we were talking. She was this Brazilian lady. And I stopped and talked to her, and she had these pamphlets on the table. And she said, "Oh, I started a gym," and I started reading the pamphlets, and it was all about Robson and all his championships and this and that. And I was like, "Oh, who's that?" And she pointed to Robson. I turned around. I was like, "Yeah, I'm not doing that match. Ain't no way in hell." So she introduced me to Robson, and we got to talk. He couldn't really speak English at all at that point, and we kind of talked through her a little bit. And then I watched him. He went into the heavyweight division, and he submitted like 3 or 4 guys of the heavyweights. And then we found out that the other side of the bracket were all the same team, and they all bowed out to one guy. So the guy made it to the finals with no matches. And Hobson had all these matches, and then Hobson was just like, "I'm not going to fight. We don't do that in Brazil.
Yeah.
I'm not going to fight all these matches and then try to fight the finals." So he didn't do the finals, even though he would have destroyed the guy. It was just, I think, a principle thing.
Sure.
And Hobson told me that I could come train, come over and train with him. So it was like the next day, I went over there and I saw he had a little class going. It was a little tiny school. He had his class going. I got there. I just wanted to stop in and see it, and I didn't plan on training that day. And I walked in the class was already going on, and in his best English, he saw me walk in. He was like, "You have gi?" I said, "Yeah." He's like, "Put it on." I was like, "All right." So I went and put it on. I walked out on the mat, and he said, "Okay, me and you." I was like, "What? Me and you what?" He said, "We grapple now." I was like, okay. And it was probably one of the worst beatings I ever got in jiu-jitsu. Like, he would arm bar me and I would tap, and I think he thought I was saying pull on the arm harder when I was trying to say let the hell go. And, it was just a complete butt whooping. And, I left that night and I went back to my school. And I was just like, dude, I was talking to some of the black belts there. I was like, I'm ready to quit. They're like, why? What happened? I was like, man, I fought this child-sized man, and he destroyed me. I was like, it seems like everything I've learned just doesn't work. And they're like, well, who is it? And I was like, I don't know, some guy, Robson Moura. And one of the guys was like, no, quit playing. Who was it? And I was like, no, it's a Robson Moura. And he's like, if you're not lying, he's like, he's the best in the world. He said, of course you're going to get destroyed. So Hobson had told me when I left that day, he was kind of laughing. He said, you come back anytime you want. So after talking to the black belt, that very next day, I got to the school early and I was sitting on the windowsill, like leaning up against the window, and he pulls in and he looks at me as he's driving by and he starts laughing. So I knew it wasn't going to be good. So the next day, it was a complete butt whooping again, complete butt whooping. And, he kept telling me, you can come train, you can come train if you want. And I just kept come training, and I trained, for quite a few months. And he had told me, you can come train with me, but you can't be my student, because we don't take students from other schools. But, he let me train, and, he wasn't asking for $1, nothing. So I just kept coming. And after about 6 months of me coming like 5 days a week, 6 days a week,
Oh, geez.
he,
And this is in
yeah,
addition to going to your own school?
no, I didn't go back. I would stop in my own school. I would train
Okay.
every now and then at the old school, like leave Hobson's and go over there. But, they told me, they're like, the one guy, he was like, dude, I would train every minute of the day with him if I could. So I tried. And for like almost the first 6 months to a year, he never asked for money, nothing. But then after that, he told me, like, he said, you show loyal to me. He said, you can be my student now. So I was like, awesome. But then I realized I had to start paying. So I was like, damn. But, I went back to my other school and I said, look, he's accepted me as a student and I can't pass that up. And they pretty much understood,
Yeah.
and then, it was a long drive. It was about an hour each way, but, it was worth it. I got to train with them. I got to learn a lot of his English. That was just like, we would laugh at it. We wouldn't try to fix it
Right.
because some of the stuff he would say, like his sweater guard, when he would say "swear to God," when he would try to say "I swear to God," and every time it'd come out sweater guard, and I'm like, "Are we going to learn that
Sweater
tonight?"
guard.
Yeah, and he would look at me, and I wouldn't tell him why. I'm like, "Are we going to learn that guard tonight?" So it was fun, but yeah, and I've been RMNU ever since day one.
And if you were to look back now, prior to training with Hobson, when you look at like, your early days as a blue belt, what was like your go-to move, your favorite move to do on the mats?
Well, when I was like a blue belt, I was always going for footlocks. Always going for, because back then, like everything in jiu-jitsu comes in real hard, then it fades away, and then it comes back, fades away. And I've seen it over the years, and footlocks have been the same thing. Now is like the strongest they've ever been, of course, and they've been around the fat of the leg locks have stayed a lot longer than any other time. And but yeah, I was always doing footlocks, always.
All right. And, looking at, your journey, if you're able to jump in a DeLorean, go back and talk to your younger self, what advice would you give to a young Jeff Mitchell?
So it's kind of funny now because like the years of training I did before Hobson, and I don't want to take anything away from those guys, but I wasn't learning real jiu-jitsu. You know what I mean? We thought we were. And I realized that when I started grappling Hobson, like he put me in a half guard. And I was like, this silly little fella, he doesn't even know what a guard is. I've never seen half guard. And I was
Gotcha.
like, I was a purple belt by then. We didn't do half guard. It was full guard or, sweep or fight to get up. Nobody went half guard. Nobody did like, all these crazy guards. The only other guard I really did was the De La Hiva guard.
Okay.
And that's a funny story too, actually. I was the only guard I would do. I don't like full guard. I don't like just locking my feet and holding people in there. I like to keep my guard open. And so I used to use the De La Hiva guard all the time. And then one day I was in class and I had this kid in De La Hiva guard. I had the kid's sleeve. I had my hook in, my other foot on the hip, thigh, whatever. And I was reaching down, grabbing the ankle or the heel of the foot that I had hooked. And this guy comes over to me, and I didn't know who he was. And he was like, no, why are you grabbing that foot? You don't grab the foot. I was like, what? He was like, no, you grab both sleeves. I was like, look, dude, I've been doing this guard for a long time. So I was like, all right, because he had a black belt on. So I kind of respect him. I said, okay. As soon as he left, I grabbed the heel and all this stuff. And then this guy, he's still around. This guy, Felipe, he's from Brazil. He walks over and he's like, oh, man, that must have been so cool. I was like, what? He said that, him telling you, Ricardo telling you, how to do the De La Hiva guard. I was like, dude, he was wrong. Come on now. He's like, no, that's De La Hiva himself. I was like, what? He's like, yeah, that's Ricardo De La Hiva. I was like, oh my God. So I felt really stupid.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's cool because like if you got a guy in the guard and he posts a knee and you put De La Hiva in the hook in, you don't need his heel. If you control both sleeves, it's a really strong position. A lot of people don't do that.
Yeah. And that's just like a story that, you're going to have forever.
Yeah, but it's not
What
like a
did,
good story. It's me being a dummy.
but aren't all your stories like that?
Most of them, yes.
Yeah. They're your stories with a little twist. You've been to Frequency Martial
Hmm.
Arts, the school that I own. We're going on 10 years. And every time you come in, you are sharing advice to the team. What piece of advice would you give to someone who's watching this video who they're a student, but they have a desire to coach one day? What advice would you give to them in
Now
their
you
journey
mean
and their training?
you mean like to own a school?
Not necessarily to own a school, but to become a teacher at the school that they're at.
So to become a teacher, it's you can become a good teacher at a lower rank, but I would say, and I see this in black belts a lot, they teach moves that they don't understand. They'll see a move and they can go out and do the move, but they don't understand the move. I can go out there and, do a hip bump sweep and get somebody to go over, but do I really understand, the actual technique behind it? So when you're gonna teach, you just got to really understand the technique you're teaching, and you got to make sure it's something you do. Um, Last night in class, we had it was a no gi class, and we were going from like De La Hiva to single leg to X guard, and I can do it all day in a gi. I know how to make my grips on the lapels, the sleeves, the pants, and I'm fine with that. But it was no gi class, so we wanted to go over that, and I'm not well versed in how to really, you know, get there technically. I can get there. I can move people and do all this, but you guys know Eric Naples. Most of you guys know
Mm-hmm.
him. He's a phenomenal no-gi person, one of the best I've ever seen, actually. And I was like, "Yo, Eric, you're gonna have to step in on this, because you understand." So, you know, what happens when somebody asks you a question, a technical question about that, and you don't really understand it? You got to know what you're talking about. So I would just tell people to study the moves, get your base moves down that you like to teach, and always start teaching with the kids. Always start teaching the kids. Couple things is you really got to explain to the kids why you're putting your foot in a certain place, why you're moving the hips a certain way. And the best part is if you mess up, the kids don't really know. Then you can correct it later.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, the kids are the best to start with, 100%.
All right. And, looking at, your time when you first started jujitsu to, where you are now as a fourth degree black belt under Hobson, how has your jujitsu changed?
Well, I added a lot of stuff to it. I was just really had a couple things that I would only do because I knew I could win with them. And one thing Hobson told us when we were training with him, he said, "No, and I'm sure most of you guys have heard it. You have to play jujitsu. You play." He said, "In class, you're not there to win. You're not fighting in class. You're there to play. You're trying new techniques. You're trying. And then most of the time, he said it's going to fail. You try new techniques. It's going to keep failing, but you have fun doing it. And that's one thing that really helps me out. Is like I don't." I don't have I do have set things I like to do, but I have more things I like to try to do while I'm grappling. And most of them don't work, when I'm trying them. And, you know, that's why you always got to start with the white belts, try the technique on them a few times and then move up. And most of the time I fail and, I just got to keep going at it. Um, and also a couple things I like to do is I like to make sure I get tapped out a few times during class, and that just keeps me, it keeps you grounded a little bit, Um, somebody gets you in a good arm lock. Could you probably escape it? Yeah, but why? You got caught, and instead of getting hurt and fighting out of it, you tap and you start over again.
Yeah.
Now there are some
And
people in class I won't tap out to, no matter what. They can break my arm off. I ain't tapping out to them.
all right, well, I don't want you walking around, with a cast. When you look at, your teammates, your students, at Elite Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, and you look at specifically your purple belts, do you feel that your purple belts are better than you at the purple belt level?
Um, well, I mean, so you have some purple belts that are competition purple belts, and you have some purple belts that are just in, class. There's always different levels of purple belts. Um, it's kind of hard to tell. I don't know because jujitsu's changed so much.
Yeah.
Do they know right now more than I did when I first got my purple belt? Yeah, a lot more. But I spent a few years of purple belt under Hobson, training with him every single day. So it's like, yeah, I don't know. It's really hard to tell.
Okay. Yeah, I look at like when my purple belts come in and the stuff that they're pulling off in class during the rounds, I just scratch my head and go, man, I never thought of doing that when I was a purple belt. And again, it's like one of those things where, you know, technology has come such a long way from the early days of seeing things in a magazine, after
Oh yeah,
ordering VHS tapes, to now it's instantly, on your
everywhere.
phone. Um, and you look at, like, when you started, how many guys started roughly the same time that you did that are still on the mats?
Yeah, there's not many. There's really not many, but there are a few. There are a few. My buddies that are still training have black belts and stuff like that. But yeah, that's true. Like I say, they know more than I did. I'm sure they know more than I did because I watch those guys now, and I just was like, man, what are they doing?
Yeah.
I didn't see that. You talk about tapes. The only tape we had was the Henzo Gracie and Greg Kukok, or however you say his name. That was the only tape out there.
Okay. And
Yeah,
that's
no
what you had to.
YouTube.
That was your learning tool.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to someone who's watching this, who's been training for a while? They feel like, they're burnt out, they're not motivated to get to class, and they're thinking about ending their training.
So we have a kid right now. He's good, you know what I mean? But he's only been there like a little over a month. And he came straight from Kuwait. And I know it sounds funny, but he plays ice hockey in Kuwait. And that's what he grew up playing and he loves it. And, he came in and with a month training, he went into the Naga we just did. And he did gi and no gi from the division was 12 months and under. And he just went through both divisions, wiped them all out, one double goal. So I'm just like, man, sometimes you just like, you're happy for him. You're like, but yeah, but he might have needed a butt whooping so he can bring himself down a little bit. But so he was out for a couple weeks because he actually thought he got a hernia through this, and that's what his doctor told him. He had some pain in his lower stomach, so he went. They told him it was a hernia, so he went to a specialist, and the specialist was like, "No, it's not at all. Go train." So he came back. He came back like a week ago, and we were sitting talking. It was actually last night, and he says, "Coach," he's like, "I'm giving up ice hockey. I'm doing jujitsu, 100%." He said, "I love it so much." He said, "I'm done ice hockey. I'm going to train every day." And I'm like, "No, don't do that. If you do jujitsu and that's all you do, you're going to burn yourself out." And that's exactly what I told him. I said, you have to have other hobbies. You have to enjoy other things. You know, Too much of that it's not good. Too much of one thing isn't good. You gotta keep your other interests in doing other things, other sports, other activities, other hobbies. Just one you'll burn out on, and it's not good.
All right. And recently I was going through some of Hobson's DVDs, videos for the belt requirements, and you did
Hmm.
the 2.0 series back when you were, a little baby professor, not even a first
Yeah.
degree black belt. Do you recall, attending your very first workshop as a student, and then that transition to hosting your own seminar?
I can remember, yeah. So the first workshop I ever did was actually that De La Hiva workshop. That's why he was there, but I didn't know it.
Okay.
He came in. He came in the night before, and he was in class the night before. So after that, I went to the workshop. Then I did another one with Hobson says it's not, but it's like his uncle. Um, I can't even remember the guy's name. I'll have to find out. But he was like a Machado guy. Um, and I from the backside, I kind of know his last name, but I don't want to bring it out. But talking to Hobson, he said, he left Brazil as a purple belt and he showed up in America as a black belt. So I don't know if that's true. I'm sure it is. Um, but that was another one I did, and then the actual first one I did was I was a brown belt, and I went down to Florida and I stayed with Hobson, and Hobson sent me over to one of his guys, and I don't. It was out there maybe around the land. I can't remember the guy's name. He was a police officer, brown belt. but he sent me over there to do a seminar. I was so nervous. I walk in and there was like 3 or 4 Gracie Baja black belts there, and I was like, man, these guys don't want to learn from me. But I went out there and taught it, and I had such a good time. And they all the black belts came up, and they were like, "That was amazing." I never seen any of that stuff, so then it became fun. And you just have to have a lot of fun with it. And I enjoy the seminar part, going and just hanging out with the people. I don't like to be the guy there. I just want to be another person there, hanging out and sharing ideas, and I want them to have fun on the mats. That's my main goal.
And you brought up a couple good points there where the first workshop you went to, you really didn't know who was hosting, who was teaching. What advice would you give to someone who has never done a workshop? They might have been training for several months, maybe even several years, but for some reason they haven't attended a seminar. What advice would you give them?
So most of, like, my guys, they're just like, I don't know if I want to spend that money. Um, I don't know if it's good enough. I'm good enough for this seminar. I just started. And the thing about the seminars is you're always going to learn a lot of stuff, and you're always going to learn new moves. You'll meet new people, but the main thing to learn are the little details. There's little details in almost each move that can be used in 6 or 7 different moves. So I tell my students, I try to bring as many people to the camps as I can. And they're all like, oh, that sometimes it's overload. There's so much information. I'm like, but those are the ones you just have fun with. You pick a handful of techniques that's going to be in your game, and you pick apart the small pieces of each move, and that's the technique you learn. You don't have to learn the whole entire move. Just learn part of it that really fits your game. Um, and it's just a good time. You get to share, see new stuff. And even if you don't see new things, you'll see little different ways to get into that same position. And that's the most important part of jiu-jitsu. It's not about learning 10 different arm bars. It's more important to know one arm bar, but 10 different ways to get to that arm bar.
Gotcha.
So that's the way I look at it.
Okay. And when you talked about the first one that you taught as a brown belt, and you're walking in and there's several black belts, on the mats. What advice would you give to someone who feels that, hey, I'm a brown belt, that purple belt that's teaching, or that blue belt that is teaching, I'm not going to be able to learn anything from them?
Yeah, that's ego. That's all that is. And if they have that mentality, then they probably shouldn't go, because they're probably going to deny themselves the technique anyway. Um, I I have 30. What did I say it was? See, I'm old. I forget. 33 years in jiu-jitsu. And there's times I'm walking around the mat and I'll stop and I look at that white belt and I'm like, can you show me that again? And what did you just do? Let me get down there. And I learned from white belts. If you have an ego like that, then you're not going to progress. You're going to be stuck, and you're going to get the blues, the blue belt blues, the purple belts. Everybody gets that, and it's because your unwillingness to learn. You have to learn from lower, same ranks, higher belts. But I
Okay.
do get that. I see that a lot. They don't want to learn from a lower belt.
Got you. All right. Before we wrap things up, I'm going to hit you with the Furious Five. There's no right or wrong answer, just whatever comes off to the top of your head. What's your favorite go-to move?
Favorite go-to move? Now, are you talking like sweep positions?
So from an open guard, where are you going?
From open guard, I love to overhead throw people.
All right.
Feet in the
Uh,
hips, right over the head. You
got you.
might have
Nice
seen
little.
it before. Have you ever seen that one?
Yeah, a few times I might have experienced that firsthand.
Okay, yeah, because I thought I
Uh,
remember seeing you go like,
yeah, maybe if the
hey.
video's out there, I won't share it.
Okay. Next question.
Pizza or tacos?
Oh man, that's terrible. That's a terrible question. You should never ask somebody that. Can I just say I'll eat a taco pizza?
There you go. We could
A
do
taco
that.
pizza.
What was the very first car you owned?
So I had a kind of owned legally, unlegally. I'm not going to say, but I had a Volkswagen Bug, and we had a 2016 cc motor in it. It was fun. It would do wheelies down the road. We would take it
Oh,
out at night
geez.
when the police weren't around, and we'd go drag racing it and stuff like that. I didn't even have a
Awesome.
driver's license either. So
So that's where the unlegally comes into play, huh?
yeah, yeah.
And what's your favorite video game?
Oh, I play Call of Duty.
All right.
I play that a lot.
And
I have a lot of friends, and it's funny because most of the guys I play with, I'm the young guy.
really?
I actually play with a guy who works at LA Studios. He's a game developer for like Nickelodeon, and Call of Duty right now has the Ninja Turtle characters in it,
Right.
and that's stuff he does because it's Nickelodeon and stuff like that, and Paramount or whatever. He works for both of them, and it's pretty cool. He told me it was coming, but he didn't tell me what was coming.
Got you.
He don't give up the secrets.
That's very cool. And
Yeah.
last question, favorite band?
Are you talking about like now or forever?
Anytime. Like if
Metallica.
they were to be in concert, you'd go see them.
Metallica and the Beastie Boys.
There you go. Awesome. Jeff, if someone's watching the video, they're looking to come out to your school and learn from you, what's the best way for them to set something up?
Walk in the front door.
All right.
Hardest part about jiu-jitsu is walking in the front door. You can send us an email. Sean handles the emails for us, and he'll get back to you, or give us a call, or just walk in the front door.
All right. Well, hey, thank you for taking time out of your day. I know you've got Call of Duty on pause right now.
No,
I'll
actually,
let
I'm
you get.
studying today. Today's a study day.
What?
I'm trying to figure out some new stuff with the gi that I want to try to learn and start drilling.
So, what are you studying?
So we did that series about moving into De La Hiva to single leg to X. I have a lot of different sweeps from X guard. That's one place I love to sweep from, but I'm trying to be more versed at the single leg X.
Got you. And
Yeah.
again, I mean, that's a nice little tidbit is the fact that, you've got all these years on the mats. You're still finding time when you're away from the mats to do homework on the positions.
Yes.
Again, thank you for taking time to join us on the RMNU podcast, and look forward to training with you on the mat soon.
Thanks for having me.